You're fired. Effective immediately. Are you sure?
The floor was moving fast, keyboards clicking, phones ringing, heels striking tile like a countdown. Nobody could stop. Then Rebecca Hart stopped walking. Right in the middle of the hallway. She turned, pointed, and everything went quiet. You. The word hit like a slap. Danny, no. Delete that name. Diane Cole stood at the far end of the hall, both hands wrapped around a mop handle. Gray uniform, hair pulled back, eyes that gave nothing away. She looked exactly like someone nobody would remember. That was the point. Rebecca walked toward her, slow and deliberate, each heel strike a tiny execution. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke, because everyone on that floor already knew the rule, the unspoken, bone-deep rule that kept everyone employed: never stand next to someone who's losing. Rebecca reached out and tore the badge off Diane's chest without asking. She let it hit the floor. Effective immediately, Rebecca said. You're done here. Diane looked down at the badge. She didn't pick it up. She didn't explain herself. She lifted her head slowly, and when her eyes met Rebecca's, there was no panic in them, no tears, no trembling lip, just one question, quiet as a held breath. Are you sure? Rebecca laughed, the kind of laugh that means this conversation is already over, and turned away. She had no idea she'd just made the last mistake of her career. No idea at all. The notification hit one screen first, then another, then 12 at once. That soft triple chime the internal system used for priority alerts rippled across the floor like a stone dropped in still water. People stopped mid-sentence. Someone's coffee mug froze halfway to their mouth. Wait, is this real? The voice belonged to Alicia, a junior analyst 2 rows back. She wasn't asking anyone in particular. She was asking the room. Rebecca turned around. Her expression hadn't changed yet. What now? Nobody answered her directly. They just kept looking at their screens. Then, slowly, one by one, they looked at Diane. Not with contempt this time. Not with pity. With something closer to dread. Rebecca crossed the floor in 6 steps and pushed herself in front of the nearest monitor. She grabbed the mouse, scrolled up, read, 1 second, 2. The smirk dissolved. She scrolled down, then back up, then down again, like maybe the words would rearrange themselves into something that made sense. 12 employees had worked extended hours over a 6-week period. None of it was logged. None of it was compensated. A voice from the back row, trembling but clear, we reported it. Another voice joined it, you told us to stay quiet or start looking for new jobs. Rebecca spun around. You, stop. All of you, just stop. Diane's voice dropped lower. Not a shout. Something heavier than a shout. The room absorbed it completely. Rebecca's mouth was still open, but nothing came out. Diane tilted her head just slightly and looked at her the way you look at something that's already over. You weren't exposed because you made mistakes, she said. She let the silence sit for a moment. You were exposed because you believed no one in this building would ever dare look you in the eye. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. And for the first time since she'd walked through those doors every morning in a gray uniform, Diane Cole was the tallest person in the room. She opened another file, emails, a chain of them, time-stamped and threaded, stretching back 14 months. Names, dates, specific instructions, all in writing. A staff member near the door leaned in and said softly, almost to himself, "That's the real internal mail system. That's not a copy." Diane didn't take her eyes off Rebecca. You wrote it. You sent it. You signed off on every single one. Rebecca shook her head, her voice cracking at the edge. I didn't, I didn't mean for it to go this far. You knew exactly what you were doing. The silence that followed was the thick kind, the kind that fills a room like water. And then, click. Every monitor on the floor switched at once. A single line appeared across all of them, white text on a dark background, administrative access locked. Someone jumped up from their chair. Wait, the whole system just, what? Rebecca moved toward the nearest terminal. What happened? Override it. Someone override it right now. Only a board-level account can unlock it, Jason said quietly from the corner. He didn't look at Rebecca when he said it. He was looking at Diane. Diane stood completely still. No explanation, no expression. The shock moved faster than any words could. Rebecca looked left, then right, then at the screen, then at the faces staring back at her, faces that used to belong to her floor, her team, her authority. None of them looked the same. What are you doing? Her voice was fracturing now. What is this? Diane looked at her, calm in a way that was almost frightening. Closing what you broke. Rebecca stood in the center of the floor, no access, no allies, no angle left to play. Her hands were shaking. She probably didn't know it. I can explain this, she said. All of this, it's more complicated than it looks. And if you just give me a chance to. Diane raised one hand. Not a dramatic gesture. Just enough. Rebecca stopped mid-sentence. You're not losing everything because of me, Diane said. She stepped closer, 2 steps, slow. You're losing it because of how you treated people you decided didn't matter. That sentence did something. Something visible. Rebecca's jaw tightened, then loosened. The argument she'd been building somewhere behind her eyes just fell apart. An employee stood up near the window. Megan had been with the company for 4 years and had never raised her voice in a meeting. You made us change the numbers, Megan said. You told us if we documented what actually happened, we'd be written up. Another voice, Ryan, from accounting. I have the messages. You sent them from your direct line, one after another. Voices that had been swallowed for months, for years, rising one at a time. Not loud, not dramatic, just true. Rebecca turned in a slow circle, like she was searching for someone who'd come to her defense. The room was silent. Not the silence of people who were afraid, the silence of people who no longer were. Rebecca's voice dropped to almost nothing. You're all turning on me at once. This is coordinated. This is. No one is turning on you, Diane said. They're just finally saying what happened. Rebecca clenched her fists. I can fix this if you let me have access back. I can fix everything. The payments, the reports, all of it. Diane looked at her for a long moment, the longest moment in the room. Some things can be fixed, she said. But some things aren't problems. They're consequences. She turned toward HR. Sandra had been standing near the back with a folder in her hand since the 3rd email appeared on screen. She stepped forward now. Termination is effective immediately, she said, her voice steady. Please review and sign. Rebecca stared at the paper. No, wait. Wait. Not yet. Diane's voice. 2 words. Cold enough to stop everything. She held Rebecca's gaze. This doesn't end here. Legal has the full file. Every altered document, every withheld payment, every recorded instruction you gave to falsify records. This will be handled according to regulation. Rebecca went still. For the first time in years, she had absolutely nothing left to say. She signed the paper. She walked toward the elevator. No one watched for very long, because the story was already over before she even reached the door. The floor was quiet, not the quiet of a room holding its breath. Something different. Something that felt like the first clean air after a long stretch of stale. Diane turned back to face the room. No podium, no title on a lanyard. Just a woman in a gray uniform who still hadn't picked her badge up off the floor. "I know why you stayed quiet," she said. A few people looked down. "Not because you agreed with what was happening. Because you thought you had no choice." She let that sit. "Starting today, you do. And no one in this building, or any building, has the right to take that from you again." No applause. No moment of cinematic triumph. Just people. Some of them standing a little straighter than they had an hour ago, some of them making eye contact for the first time in months, some of them quietly deciding something they hadn't decided before. Diane looked around the floor one last time. Then she walked back down the hallway, the same hallway she'd walked every day, the same fluorescent light, the same sound of keys and monitors and the HVAC system humming behind the walls. Everything looked the same. Nothing was. At the elevator, she paused. Didn't turn around. "Power isn't about standing above people," she said, her voice just barely reaching the ones behind her. "It's about what you do with it when you're standing next to someone who has none." The elevator opened. She stepped in. The doors closed. And the floor stood still, not out of fear, not out of confusion, but because every single person in that room was doing the same quiet thing at the same moment. Thinking about which side they'd been on, and what they were going to do differently. In the days that followed, the office looked the same desks, same lights, same rhythm. But conversations that used to get swallowed got spoken. Things that used to slide past people's eyes got named. Not because everyone suddenly grew brave overnight, but because they'd watched something happen. They'd watched a woman in a gray uniform stand in the middle of a floor where no one would have bet on her, and refuse to disappear. And once you see that, it changes the math on everything. Diane never made a statement about it afterward. No press release, no speech to the assembled staff. She did what she always did, showed up, worked through the problem, put things back where they belonged. That quiet was louder than anything she could have said. Because that's the thing about real authority, it doesn't need the room to go silent when you walk in. It reveals itself in what you do when the room is loudest, when everyone is watching someone lose, when the safe move is to look away. The badge was still on the floor when they found it the next morning. Someone had placed it carefully on her desk. No note, no name, just the quiet understanding that some things don't need an explanation. They just need to be put back where they belong. The people who never have to announce their power are always the ones who have the most of it. And Diane Cole had been standing in that building the entire time, invisible, until the day she chose not to be.